how is that artist supposed to articulate the ideas in a language that maybe you won't understand? Is there any access for that kind? Because I know I'm from MSU Baroda painting. I know how many friends I have helped in making their photography and their PDF
Statements
and their
and whatever,
statements,
yeah.
and my heart goes out even today to know that, I'm really proud of like guys like Bose and all who are doing these amazing things in the south of India. In the northeast you have a few residencies and a few camps that are doing amazing workshops and shows. In a way, I'm sorry, I asked a long question, but like
So first, with the vernacular, one thing we have been trying to do at the gallery is make everything more accessible.
Yeah.
We work with Shah, who's an accessibility consultant. So the gallery is entirely wheelchair accessible. So if you're in a wheelchair, there will be no steps you have to climb to come to that. Two, we also have, this was pre-COVID because I haven't figured out how to do it for post-COVID. Pre-COVID, we used to have handouts, which were in large font for visually impaired visitors. And we also used to do the same large font in Hindi and Marathi. And for one show, we also did it in Gujarati. So we got them translated so that people could access what they were looking at. Now, I know that's a different type of access of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The reason I speak in English is because my English is good. My Hindi is terrible.
Yeah.
And the one artist who will attest to this is Muzumil Ruhil, because every time I have a conversation, he starts talking in this lovely Urdu, and I'm like, Tera mera ke, like it's very bad.
Yeah.
I understood everything, but my Bombay Hindi was like atrocious. So I understand Hindi and I understand some amount of Marathi and I understand other languages. So if you come here and you're like, hey, actually my English isn't so good, can I speak to you in Hindi? I will reply to you saying yes, but I will reply to you in English because my Hindi isn't so good.
True.
So it's not about that, right? Like I think what you're talking about,
we're not discussing
of
you.
artists feeling like,
we're not discussing you. We are, but in a way, I'm not discussing you. I'm discussing the artist hang up.
But yeah, so that I think that's a personal hang up that someone needs to get over and just be able to come and say, hey, my English isn't good, but can I speak to you in
upfront, honestly? And
honestly, like, actually, and I don't know a single gallerist who would say no to that.
Yeah, sure. I know that, but the students don't know that. The students feel like the gallerists are too cool, ultra rich. I'll go ahead and say snooty, kind of like they have a chip on their shoulder in the sense they're not because I don't know I don't know what justifies that, or I don't even know what that is. But in a way, the art world has been accused multiple times of being elitist
and this is all over the world, right? We are and we.
Yeah, but let's fix it. I know what you're saying. But I'm saying,
right,
I'm asking you to just maybe.
So I'm saying what I'm saying is, if you can't speak a language,
yeah,
I think the problem in India is that we see vernacular languages as something to be looked down upon, or people feel that English is an ideal.
Yeah.
Think of it as someone coming to India who only speaks French. They tell you, I only speak French. Here is my friend. He will translate. Bring a friend along.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I know. Why is it important question? Why is it? This is the title question. Why is it important to have new galleries, a new voice? This is the title question. So, take 5 minutes.
Maybe they can be galleries that work only in the vernacular.
Yeah.
Maybe they can be. Yeah, there's so many reasons. Like there's so many ideas of different new galleries that can happen. Right?
Yeah. A slightly personal question: Are you alone? You can take that in any way you want.
So, I have a child, a husband, and a dog. I'm definitely not alone at home. And also at the gallery, I have a fantastic team. So it's not like the support structure at the gallery and the fact that these guys can kind of run the show even in my absence is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And also in terms of the work that I'm doing, I don't think I'm alone, because this kind of goes back to your earlier question of gallerists having this snooty kind of reputation.
Yeah.
But I found gallerists have been some of my best allies. They've been very helpful when I need help. Small things like who's your shipper? How do you do this?
Yeah.
It's been actually really wonderful to have the support system of gallerists across the country, and even to an extent across the world. Like we speak to gallerists in different places about different artists and different things, and I think it's incredible because we all have similar kind of issues regardless of where we are.
Yeah.
Whether you think of that in terms of seniority or you think of that in terms of location, there are similar kind of things that we all kind of struggle with. So
I want to ask you, how the artists feel that the galleries are less. Do you as the gallery feel like the collectors are less?
No, collectors are everywhere.
Collectors are everywhere. So then
collectors are everywhere, man.
So then shouldn't there should be more galleries?
There should be more galleries.
And then can you give like an elevator pitch to other aspiring gallerists out there who just want to take the leave? They want to leave their corporate job and start a gallery. Do you?
No, please don't leave your corporate job.
I'll tell you what happens. The artists are frustrated. Okay, they are like, we can't make a living respectfully. We can't pay. Some artists don't even know what GST is. Some artists, they don't file the taxes. It's sad. I know 80% of them don't have life insurance. It's not a respectable life to be. It's not cool anymore. I'm going to take a question later. I'm going to explain that to you in detail. So, and it's related to your relationship with the artist in a way. So, which is why I asked you the question, is that the artists are feeling the pinch of not having their works put out there. And if you are saying that the collectors are everywhere so confidently, I really feel like I don't know. I don't know what to say. I just feel like artists should know that. I feel like artists should know.
In terms of the elevator pitch for someone to leave their corporate job to start a gallery, there's a meme that I've been seeing like on repeat, which is I didn't want to work 9 to 5. Now I work 24 hours a day.
That's that.
So
when I asked you how tough is your job, you said I love it. Now you're complaining.
I do love it. I love it, but you do work 24 hours a day. So is that something you're ready for?
That's true.
It takes a specific personality type to be ready for that, and a lot of people don't want to work 24 hours a day.
You have genuine love while you're doing. Otherwise, you can't do it. You got to be passionate.
You can't. You'll be damn irritated, right? If someone calls you on a Sunday to ask you like what frame they should put, I'll be damn excited because I'll be like, oh, you're thinking about the frame. Yes, the work is ready.
True.
It kind of, it varies. So one, be ready for that. The second is it's not when I say collectors are everywhere, I think I mean it as I think everyone can be a collector.
No, but like, come on, you're biased towards the institutional guys and girls who are like board of directors.
Not at all. Like we sell artwork that actually is how do I phrase this?
I've heard
yes,
some galleries wouldn't sell a work to anyone who just came in. I
sell a work to anyone, provided they can pay for it. But we no. So what excites me most about the gallery is I know a lot of the people we sell to are actively living with the work they bought. There are very few people who buy the artwork here and kind of hide it away in storage for the next 50 years.
Wow.
And that makes me very, very happy. So I'm actually quite, heartened by that, because what I see a lot, when I say I think everyone can be a collector, I mean there are a lot of people who have not yet begun collecting who I know have the ability to start collecting. So it's a question of kind of tapping into those people.
Yeah. You mentioned, I just had like a moment of like, I was like, what did she just say? Collectors who come here, buy an artwork and lock it up for 50 years.
There are some.
Can you please explain to artists, because that adds value to the artist, because artists themselves look at themselves like, okay, I just made a sale right now and I'm okay. They don't see themselves that as valuable individuals who represent national treasures. And as that's my
But then,
the third question I asked you was, do you care anything about anything other than business, and think about national cultural identity? And but you're saying that the collectors do.
so
Can you just articulate?
the collectors, so I think the collectors care a lot about, there are some collectors who have vast collections that will eventually kind of
Yeah.
turn into museums and things like that, which means sometimes your work will end up in a store, in a go down for some amount of time, and then eventually will go up on a wall where it's recognized. There's a little note about you, there's a little note about your artwork and about your practice.
That's all.
And like, your like children will go see it and be like, oh wow, so cool, my mom made this. Stuff like that. So that is also important simultaneously.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, but at least you don't have to wait to kill the artist, or like the artist is dead anymore. That culture is gone.
That culture is gone. I think across the world, it's gone.
All right. Pandemic special question. Pandemic special.
Oh.
Online art exhibitions versus real offline TARQ shows. You did this fantastic 3D LiDAR scanner thing, which I took my mobile around and I was like...
You did? Okay, cool. I'm glad.
I was like amazed that happens, and I saw something like this, something technologically advanced, and I was like really clapping my hands. Maybe you didn't hear it. I was far away from you, but I was like, this is a champion move. Do you... I mean, I don't know who else did it. I just saw your thing. Really well done. Really well done, by the way.
No, thank you. We actually did it kind of as an experiment. So the guy who helped us do it is Varun Ramana. He was joined in a team with Charu and Divya Tak, who kind of helped us work out the digital aspect of the exhibitions. We did it as an experiment for the exhibitions between lockdown 1 and lockdown 2. And then I think we stopped doing it because we realized less and less people were actually looking at that kind of thing.
That's sad, right?
Because as we were able to open, more and more people prefer to come into the gallery. It was a lot of fun kind of doing it.
What do you prefer?
I love being in the gallery. I hate looking at stuff online.
This question was not about whether this. It was like, what's right for the future. It's like, is that sustainable to do an online display like that, high tech display where people take their mobiles?
I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a bit it's a ways away from the actual experience as yet. So I don't know if you saw, but there's a 3D imaging software, which is what a lot of other spaces were using, where you kind of click through an exhibition.
Yeah. And it's digital.
And for me, it felt like someone was playing that game, Counter-Strike. It felt like that, it felt like you're like clicking from one place to another, and it did nothing new and exciting. And for me, what I wanted the digital to do was to add an extra element that you wouldn't get at the gallery. Yeah. So there was, Garima Gupta's show was actually all light boxes. So I don't know if you saw the live version of that, but you could actually toggle the light on and off.
Oh no, I didn't see that. I missed that.
Which I wouldn't let you do in the gallery, right? Like, cause the light, but so it was actually very cool that we could do it digitally. And then similarly, something like Sameer's show kind of lends itself to that digital medium and that digital visual. Actually, Sameer connected me with Varun. So if you're asking, what do I learn from my artists? Everything, every day. Like, I don't know anything about them. But I think beyond a point, it stopped making sense because, and I don't know if you felt this, but I feel that the things that are happening physically are getting a lot more traction than things that are happening only digitally.
Oh wow, that's a new take, yeah. Because usually people feel like everybody who's doing, your online game is strong, your Insta game, as you call it.
Insta game is strong. So I'm not discounting the online. I'm not saying it's not important. I think at the moment, because everyone is experiencing some kind of digital burnout, I think the physical game is equally important. Or like, I want to focus more energy on what we're doing in the space than on the digital. The other digital thing, just before we wrap this up, that we're doing that people are really enjoying, and that I think is kind of feeding into this this fusion. What is it called? Phygital or whatever they call it. like the mix of the two. The hybrid is we're doing something called virtual walkthroughs, where you can take an appointment and someone at the gallery will do like a Zoom call with you through the exhibition on a phone.
Oh wow!
I think people are finding that more interesting and more exciting than the 3D stuff, because you get to talk to someone. You can actually get so what Varun and I talked a lot about is what you lose when you move digital is sense of scale and sense of light.
Yeah, but then that makes it
so if you
that experience makes it even more like the FPS shooter game you said, Counter-Strike, where you're like you can actually
but less, right? Because then you're actually with someone, like you're actually looking at the gallery and not a photograph of the gallery.
That's true. You give them
not a model of the gallery.
True. You can give them like red bindis. You like sale.
Well, it's also more buggy, right? Because you'll see someone walk past, you'll see me going to get my lunch, like you will see that.
It's
kind
more
of
real.
thing.
Yeah, I get that.
I think that. Yeah.
Like this question is a little serious.
Sure.
I'm an artist speaking to other artists, and artists are getting a little frustrated these days. I'll come to the point. The point is that galleries, and I'm not speaking of you, I'm speaking of galleries in general, don't allow their artists to speak. I've seen solo shows being curated, and the artists have been asking, these are conversations that were private. I'm just bringing them out there. Let's see what happens with making this idea public. Why do you need a curator? Artists have been complaining. It's getting irritating now. Sometimes, just hear me out. And in a way, artists are started to seem like labor. They're just the makers of the work in that sense. Even though their ideas are honest, it just seems like the curator has taken is shooting the gun from the shoulders of the artist. I just want to ask you, is this going to hurt your business soon? Do you see it that way? Because eventually the artist is going to not have any voice. Is my question wrong?
No, let me answer your question.
Yeah, okay.
So I think that and when you say you're not talking about me, you're talking about gallerists in general. I can't answer for gallerists in general. I'll answer for myself.
Yeah.
At TARQ, we think the artist's voice is the most important.
Yeah.
So even when we're choosing a curator, you're saying like solo shows are curated or whatever. For me, when a solo show is curated, very often it's more about the accompanying text.
Yeah.
And then also the curation. But the curation actually also comes in with the hanging and all those kind of ideas and thoughts that come together in the physical space. But when we choose a curator, or when we choose an author, or when we choose even a panel discussant, like if we're doing a panel discussion, when we choose another panelist, we make sure the artist is comfortable with the person before choosing that person.
Yeah.
So our current exhibition actually is a great answer to your question, because
plug it.
What we did for Arees Karki's show is the catalog is a series of letters, which are conversations between Arees Karki and Zeenat Nagri, who is not the curator, but who has written the text for the show.
Yeah.
So what you're saying about these were private conversations and that kind of thing, these are actually private conversations that have been documented, printed out, supplemented with photos and sketches and those kind of things. Yeah. And that's the catalog. So I think what you're saying about the artist's voice being the most important is very true. The artist needs to talk. The artist needs to talk all the time.
All the time.
Having said that, there are a lot of artists who do not like to talk at all. Yeah. Which is when sometimes it kind of helps to have a curator, but again, never at the expense of the artist's voice. But sometimes you also need that additional voice to contextualize the artwork in the wider art world, right? Like, I think that's why a curator is important. I think having someone come in and talk about your work in the context of someone else's is really interesting. So actually, we're doing a next show, which is called Shifting Selves. It's in collaboration with the Sarmaya Art Foundation.
Oh, nice.
So Sarmaya actually is an institution that collects artwork and has been collecting artwork from a variety of periods, including the contemporary
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And actually, the show with them is about collectors and gallerists and galleries and how collections are built.
Nice.
Basically.
That's
So
nice.
what's very interesting is they've taken 3 artists from their collection that they've acquired from TARQ in conversation with other historical artworks from their collection as well.
From the past.
So you have
that's lovely.
From the past.
That's
So
lovely.
you have artwork that is kind of hundreds of years old alongside artwork that was made last year. And so for me, it's a great testament to the work that our artists are doing, in that the work stands up to the test of time. But also it's that kind of contextualization, and that's what you're looking for from a curator. The last thing you want a curator to do is kind of misinterpret something or kind of misrepresent something.
Yeah.
But I think the context and the kind of insight that a curator can bring to a living artist is also very valuable.
Yeah, of course. I'm not doubting that. I'm just putting out the grievances out of what maybe artists are having subconsciously or even consciously over alcohol or in parties.
I think they should talk to their gallerists, and if any of them work with me, please have them call me.
No. I'm not going to take names here, but I'm just in a lighter question. Can I ask you, what's bad for business for you? What's bad for business?
What's bad? What is bad for business?
Oh wow! Look at you. What is?
I don't.
Bad?
I think it's also because of how much I enjoy, like the pandemic. The first 3 months of the pandemic sucked. So like lockdowns are bad for business.
Yeah. No,
right.
Yeah. I was hoping that would be the only answer, but then you have to take time. I was like, wow, business is great for this person. Yeah, pandemic.
Well, also,
I'm saying I meant.
Also, no,
larger.
Pandemic has been terrible for business.
Like in the stock market, when the stock market crashes, that's bad for business. When is it like I'm just asking because I feel like artists should know how you function and what are your pain points, and so that because this is a collaboration. I see it as a collaboration. I always see
100%.
They don't know they don't know what shit you go through. So for them, it's like yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No. So I think what's bad for the economy is bad for business. So if the economy is hurting, my business will also hurt. Like that's a very...
I'm not asking general questions. I'm asking you very specific.
Specifically, I can't tell you, right? Because sometimes the stock market will go down. There's this very famous, there's this story, right? Like the day Lehman Brothers collapsed.
Yeah.
In America was the same day Damien Hirst did a record-breaking auction at Sotheby's. Same day.
Yeah. Same day, huh? Wow.
Same day. It's like it's in not all the books, but like I read a lot about the art market and that. So it's the same day that Lehman Brothers announced bankruptcy that Damien Hirst set a lot of records. So there's no these correlations are very hard to come by, especially with the art market, because it's opaque, na?
Yeah.
I don't have to publish my sales.
True. That's true.
The only publicly published sales are auction house sales.
Yeah.
And that's not it's a percentage of the art market, right? All private sales are not publicly issued.
Is that
so? How do you know?
Yeah, I don't know if you'll answer this, but is the culture of payment in cash gone in India?
Yeah, it's not there. It's gone. It's gone.
Safe answer.
Because we pay GST, our artists pay GST. I was talking to my accountant, you need an e-way bill for everything that comes in.
If all your artists pay GST, that's amazing.
The ones who are not registered, I pay reverse charge. So we are constantly paying taxes to the government, right? So it's not something that...
Yeah. No, then that if the artist is paying GST, that means they're making 35 lakhs plus, which is great, and I'm really proud of it.
Or it means that gallerist is very deep and it's like, please get a GST number, thank you.
That's true. I'm gonna talking of money also. I'm gonna again, students' top requested question, the great, how do you price an artwork question, and why is it important to have the right price? How do you add value? I won't say price. I don't want to put the word price out there like a fixed asset.
So how do you it's not like bhaji, but how do you value an artwork is kind of based on the artist's practice up to that point.
Yeah. Is there a
So
specific,
if you've ever sold some,
yeah, sorry. Is there a specific
No.
I don't take example, but I'm just saying like general. Again, this is like something you're with your friends and your friends ask you, hey Hena, just one lingering question for the last 30 years in my mind was, how do you price your artworks? What's your answer to that?
it's kind of it's things like size, medium, artist past performance, how detailed is this work. So some works of a similar size, in the middle when the boom was happening, there were some people saying, oh, per square inch is so much and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, it's not real estate, because this is Bombay, right? People are like, oh, per square inch itna. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It's about kind of the detail that the artist has put into the work. Is it a more meaningful work in their practice?
Yeah.
How can you make out a work is more meaningful? That's something an outsider does, or a curator does, or an artist tells you, hey, this work there's a shift. I can feel it. It's coming.
All right. Now, I'm going to ask you a relationship question. So, one simple, fun question is, it's via an analogy. The artist is usually going around with one gallery, all right, but the gallerist is seeing 20 artists. So, in a way, the gallery.
Man, if I had one artist who could keep the gallery full 365 days of the year, I would work with one artist.
That's true. No, so the artist,
right?
Yeah.
It's a very basic thing.
It's a basic thing, but in a way, what the artist feels is obviously the artist is offering 100% commitment, and they, artists are artists. They are, if they went out of business, it's not like they would think, okay, I'm not an artist anymore, I'll just sell something else on the side. In the core belief, they're artists. So
yeah.
I know gallerists that have just shut shop saying that, hey, it's a business for me, I'm just going to shut. They're not like intrinsically a gallerist. I don't know. My question to you is, how do you prioritize? You're like a film producer. You work with all the creatives in the sector, and in that sense.
So how do you prioritize which artist gets more like love at a certain time?
So that you don't upset. So you don't maybe upset, because every artist would feel like Hena doesn't have time for me. I know other galleries and other artists who are like, mere ko time nahi deta.
I would hope not, but also whenever. I think for what we do at the gallery is, it's not just me. We have a team, and Simran and Malhara always available to answer artist questions.
Yeah.
So if an artist has like a press question, usually they'll reach out. If they reach out to me, I direct them to Simran, and so everyone has time for them.
Yeah.
Obviously, as someone's show gets closer, I end up spending more time talking to them, but that kind of happens.
Yeah.
Regular frequency. We also work on different projects with different artists. So as we're working on different stuff with someone else, we end up kind of spending more time with them.
No, so the artist. My question was that the artist should know that you're going out with 20 artists, and not that artist only. Sometimes, because I
mean, now as I said, if this artist is able to keep my gallery full.
Yeah. No, I worked in the Biennial. I worked in the Biennale in Kochi, and so the artist used to come up to the production people and to me and basically say like, I just give me 2 hours. I need. We're like, no, we have 100 other artists that we have to do today. We have to be with today. So I just feel like the artist might feel like.
But in the Biennale, it's a very different context. I feel like that's a kind of not a long term. It's not a long term issue. In a group show, it's an issue where it's like, why didn't I get this wall?
Yeah.
You told me I was getting this wall. I'm like, dude, I'm very sorry, but now this is what has happened. Like, let's move on with our lives. And
that's what you meant when you said that gallery is your first child and now you have another child. And then within...
Correct.
And you become like... And that first child has many more children also. So you're like a grandmother there. You're like, sambhal na lena pad.
Like, please just take care of yourself.
Now, let's say you have a situation. It's a very personal question. I mean, the artists are not asking this question, but I have this question.
Sure. What is the question?
An artwork just refuses to sell. it's just not selling, or the artist
Right.
is not selling. Forget the artwork, the entire show didn't sell. Okay, just maybe imagine, I know you said business is great, but I'm just imagining a time when nothing is selling, and it's not the pandemic, everything is okay, it's just you believe in the artist, but the
Fine.
artist just won't sell. Do you pass the buck? Do you kind of like, I don't know, do you kind of say, okay, maybe I'm a bad gallerist, or do you pass the buck on the artist and say that the artist just won't sell? Or what do you do? Do you change the artist? Do you change the attitude, or do you keep calm and
You
in a way just hang on?
you keep I think you keep calm and you keep supporting the artist, and you figure out what went wrong, whether it was on your end, whether it was on their end, whether it was a small thing or a big thing, and then you kind of work through it.
Yeah, you're a good, sweet gallerist, by the way. If you stick with the with the artist, no, because there are some. Haven't you heard of any stories in the past? I've heard quite a few. In fact, I know some of them who are just, maybe they're drinking right now somewhere. They're like, "Hey, man, like I just didn't get support from my gallery, and now I'm not with the gallery. I didn't sell, and the gallery won't take the blame. They'll, because like again, like the artist will be like, I did my job, I made the artwork, and then I was left high and dry.
Well, I don't see the point in passing it's not a blame thing, right? If it's kind of just working through what went wrong, whether you did something wrong, whether the artist did something wrong. And again, it's not one thing. It's not like the stock market went down that day and therefore didn't sell anything.
Yeah.
So it's something that you kind of have to just,
but you're
I think, work through.
In a way, it's nice to hear that you when you said that you hang on tight, don't change your, but you've got to change something. What would you change? If I'm asking you to just imagine that everything is fine, but just the artist is not selling because maybe the collectors, you made a bad decision.
Sometimes it doesn't sell, and then you got to just stick with the artist and wait and see what happens, right? And see where it can go and where else you can place it. Kind of figure out, maybe I've been approaching the wrong collectors, maybe I hung the show badly, maybe the pictures were not good enough, and these are all things that have happened.
Can you explain where your job ends? I know you said you work 24 hours and all of that. That's just lip service. But I want to ask you,
It's not lip service.
No, I mean, no, you have a child now. Of course, you don't work 24 hours. You have priorities. You have a lovely family. You're a professional. So I just want to ask you.
Right.
This question was requested to me by your family actually. They want to know, where does Hena's Hena's job end? Make her answer this question.
My family knows the answer of it does not end, and I do it all the time. But also, again, I think it's because I enjoy it. Like I love doing it. Like, it's something. And what you're saying about time is slightly more limited and more regimented. I think I've also got wonderful support from my artists in the last 1.5 years.
Yeah.
So I had a baby just before the pandemic. So during the pandemic and because of the baby, everyone's been really understanding, and we've kind of worked through
That's sweet.
everything.
That's nice.
Yeah.
You didn't answer my question, but anyway, I would just basically want to know what a job.
My job doesn't end.
Doesn't end. If you went for a job to another,
I have a client who bought a work several years ago, and there's something wrong with it now. I have to fix it. So you tell me where my job ends.
Basically, if you went to another gallery to ask for a job as an employee, and they asked you, so what was your job scope in the past? That's my question. What would you say? It's like, well, I
hopefully they would have heard of TARQ, and I wouldn't have to answer the question.
I get that. Maybe I should ask your assistants what their collective job scope is, and that's then your job scope, right?
Kind of.
Okay.
But also no, it's anyway.
Social media. I have a social media question.
Shoot.
Do comments and feedback affect you? Like, sometimes you might have like a sensitive artwork. There's things like censorship, snowflakes, gundas. I don't know. Like, do you get threats, or is everything sweet so far?
So far, we have not got many threats. So.
Yeah. No. I mean, but have you ever represented an artist who's outright sensitive, who has sensitive content, and that you needed an A certificate from the government? You needed maybe some kind of special treatment.
So we deal with sensitive content sensitively, in the sense of we had shown one artwork at I'll tell you the story, but don't.
No, then don't tell me.
But edit it out.
No,
Or then
unless you
should I tell you?
No, tell me the story, but don't take names then.
Basically, there was an artwork. This was in 2020. While there were protests going on in Delhi, we had shown an artwork in Delhi at the India Art Fair, which is a photograph of a protester.
Yeah.
We showed it. We showed it not in the front of our booth, but towards the back of our booth, and everyone who needed to see it saw it. Everyone who needed to understand it understood it.
Yeah. What happened?
So
hello.
Nothing happened. Nobody said anything. Like nothing.
Yeah, and this was during the Shaheen Bagh thing, so everybody was sensitive and everything was. But the press tried to get some juice, some content out of it, but it just, you didn't allow it. Oh.
No, we allowed people to whatever images they wanted to. Like, it was fine. We didn't stop anything. Nothing kind of happened.
Yeah, but just in case something would have happened, you'd obviously back the artist, or would you back off?
No, so I had a conversation with the artist before we showed the work, where I was like, look, if it gets dangerous for my staff or if it's unsafe, then we will remove the work, and he was fine.
Okay, he was fine. Yeah, so I mean, you have had this moment.
Because again, it's a team. So I wasn't at the fair in 2020 because I was pregnant and unable to travel. But my team was there.
I was there when that happened.
And yeah,
I was making another film for them.
My team was there. My artists know the whole team. So I was like, look, if something, if something is going to happen to my team, I can't let it happen. And they're like, of course not. We also don't want anything to happen to your team. So if you see anything that's going to happen, they leave the judgment call to me, which I'm very thankful for.
Nice. I wanted to ask you if anything upsets you, but doesn't seem like anything upsets you. I'm not going to ask that question. The interview is about to get over.
Yeah.
I have one request. You can say no to this. Everyone says yes, so you take that call. In a way, I want to ask you if you can please look.
It's like the optional question, on the application form, like bharna hai to.
Bharna, no, but this is, please, I'm requesting you. It'll go a long way, and plus we're making art history also. So please look into the camera and please, if you could ask people to subscribe to art. We're doing it's really tough editing these long format videos.
I'm looking at the camera.
Please. And then please say whatever, make it heartfelt, make it sound honest, make it sound real, and ask them to subscribe to and follow your Instagram page also. I'll keep the whole thing in the... Go for it.
So please subscribe to Art History Plus. And if you enjoyed this interview, please also follow TARQ on Instagram at TARQ Mumbai. I'll say it again.
Please.
I'll say it again.
Please.
Let's get to 20,000 guys. 20,000.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Say that. 20,000. Let's while you're
no, let's not.
It's free. People don't realize subscribing is free. They think like Reader's Digest.
On YouTube?
Yeah, people think it's like Reader's Digest. You have to subscribe. You have to pay to subscribe and stuff. It's free. It's a big juicy red button, and it's a blue button for her on Instagram. It's a red button on YouTube for me. YouTube से पैसा आता है, Facebook से पैसा जाता है. So
correct. That's why they all own each other.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Hena, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
It's actually been historic. Questions have never been answered so honestly, and
right? I should lie more, it seems.
No, in fact, I asked you questions on behalf of a lot of young art students. I'm not painting students and sculpture students, and in a way,
yeah,
it's pretty honest, man. It's pretty good. Thank you so